Well, hello, everybody. I feel like something good is about to happen. Sing with me. I just feel like something good is on its way. He has promised that he'd open all of heaven. And brother, it could happen any day. When God's people humble themselves and they call on Jesus, and they look to heaven expecting as they pray. I just feel like something good is about to happen. And brother, this could be that very day. Now listen to this. I have noticed all the bad news in the paper, and it seems like things are bleaker every day. But for this child of God, it makes no difference. For I know things will get better either way. I have never been more thrilled about tomorrow. Sunshine's always bursting through the clouds of gray. I just feel like something good is about to happen. And brother, this could be that very day. Hey everybody, happy Thursday. I am so excited because today I have a guest. And I have a very special guest. This guy has made a big impact in my life. We wrote a song together back in 1991. I wrote the lyric in 84, handed it to him in 91, and his name is Rufus Green. Welcome, everybody. Buddy Green.
Good morning, Mark. You're in good voice this morning.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Got there. I'm good. Good to be with you, my friend.
I know I saw you post yesterday something about you like that song you hadn't heard in a while.
Well, I've been getting on the Facebook a little more recently than
See?
I am known to do, and because of the quarantine, the shut-in, and so anyway, I was kind of going down through there, and I came across your page, and you were already doing something. So I stayed around for a few minutes, and you did that song, and it reminded me of my Baptist roots.
Oh, I'm so glad to do something to help you bring you back to Christ, buddy.
I know, I might get saved before this is
I
over
know
with.
you Presbyterians. Now, y'all can only get saved once. You're once saved, always saved, like us Baptists.
Not only am I a lapsed Baptist, but now I'm a lapsed Presbyterian now. I mean,
Okay.
I've been hanging out with the Anglicans and the Episcopalians for the last 10 years.
Buddy,
I know it's gone from bad to worse.
buddy, don't make. My knees have already got calluses from praying for you.
They call you old camel knees, don't they? I know.
Hey, buddy. So,
Mhm.
so what are you doing to occupy your time during quarantine? This is day what, 17 or 18? I think I said. I can't. This is
Yeah,
17 for me. Number 17. How many days have you been quarantined?
longer than that because Vicky and I were out in California visiting my daughter and my granddaughter, son-in-law, and actually my other daughter had flown out on her spring break. This was back at the first week of March, and we planned a little vacation out there together. And then this all started happening, so we cut it short. We flew home on the 14th. So we've been quarantined since the 14th.
Now, is this the
We
bass
just
singer
started.
that has the baby?
Yes.
I love her. Y'all,
She loves
listen.
you.
I named her the bass singer. What's her name? Her real name is Erin.
Erin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Erin
I always called her the
Lukeberg.
bass singer because when she was 2, all right, I had horrified her. I had just discovered a video camera. Remember, buddy?
Oh gosh, everybody remembers it. We're on that cruise with you that time. You were the most obnoxious videographer.
I know. I had it in everybody's face, but I was so thrilled with, I know, like I tell people when I get home, the Lord's going to say, Mark, let me show you how I kept you moving in the right direction. He's going to take me to a pole with a string and a gadget on the end of it because I love gadgets and also they help you reach people. But anyway, I didn't know that at the time. So your little daughter, she had that deep voice. Does she still have a deep voice?
It's not as deep as it was. I mean, it was back then. It sounded, it really shocked you because it was coming out of this little bitty figure. But she had that deep voice till she was probably in high school, and then it kind of started sounding like a normal tone. So she's not really the bass anymore. But I do remember you coming to the door one night with that camera, to our cabin, and so I opened up the door, and there you were, right in our face with that camera. And you talked to her, and she looked up at you, and she went, "Bye, Mark."
Yeah. Bye, Mark. It's more like, bye, Mark.
The other thing I remember about you and that camera is you showed me the footage you'd gotten later, and you were so mischievous. You would come up to these unsuspecting cruisers, like right after dinner when they had food in their teeth, and you start talking to them, they'd be smiling, talking about what a great time. And unbeknownst to them, you would zoom in on the particle between their teeth.
Well,
whatever blemish. If they had a mole with hair coming out of it, you'd kind of go.
Yeah, I wasn't real Christian back then. But you know what? They had these incredible zooms on them, and you could get so close. You could get right on a pore that had a blackhead in it. It was amazing what you could find on people's faces with that zoom. So, buddy, I still want to know, you got your sweet little wife, who's probably the biggest Gaither music fan I think I've ever met. Don't you think?
She has a shrine upstairs to all things Gaither. It's
Oh.
just a whole room dedicated to it.
I know.
It's
So
called a
what are
closet.
y'all doing to occupy your time? I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, I'll go in there in a minute when this is over, and I'll go read all the comments, and I'll like them. That means I've read them. I can't. There's so many I can never answer them all, but I love reading them and knowing that people are actually watching this, buddy, and we're encouraging them.
It's a great thing you're doing, Mark, and thanks for bringing me in. I'm really glad to be here this morning.
Well, you're one of the greatest encouragers I know. I think Buddy Green has taught me more about grace than, in the early days, we had so many great discussions.
You've done the same thing with me, Mark. The thing about encouraging people, you don't even know you're doing it when I think it's really being done, when it's really being led by the Spirit. And it comes through, walking together through life together and putting up with each other. Grace is not always a little picnic affair. It's a lot of times it's butting heads and hurting people and learning how to ask for forgiveness and being forgiven and all that sort of thing. And you have to do that in life. It's something I can write songs about it and try to say something from a platform or a stage. But nothing comes across like it does in friendships, in marriages, with your kids, your neighbors. So I really think that's how grace works. It's in these sort of unseen ways that can frankly upset our lives on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah. So you're just holding up like everybody else. A lot of people though aren't as fortunate as you and me. They're hunkering down all alone, and I know some of you are watching, and that's why I check on you every day at 10 a.m. I'm checking in just to let you know that we're all going through this. We're all hunkering down. Now, some of us are blessed. I got my friends, Dina, Colleen, Shelly, Deborah. They're all cooking for me. I'm going to have to get on my 600-pound life when this is over, buddy.
You putting on the tonnage?
Oh my gosh, I look like a Macy's Day Parade float.
Well, you never have been much of one for exercise, Mark.
Well, I do one sit up a day. I get up in the morning. That's half. I lay down at night. That's the other half. Now, if I get in a nap, which I do these days, that's two sit-ups. So
you don't want to overdo it, Mark.
No, and you got to have strength to get to the back house where they're cooking the food.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you really want to reserve that strength as much as you can, don't you?
Well, yeah, I figure, the Lord only gives you so many heartbeats. And if you get them going too fast, you're wasting heartbeats.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that, Mark. Listen, yeah, your approach, you should write a book on fitness the Mark way.
Right.
Be
Buddy,
a
sing
bestseller.
something for us.
Let
We've
me write
missed.
it forward.
Hey, you said you had
Let me
an
sing a
idea of
song.
something to sing? A song. You
Yeah.
actually came up with a hymn I've never heard. So I'm looking forward to this.
This is I'm not sure this would qualify as a hymn, but it was written by a fellow named Charles Tenley. And he was an African American. Are you still there, Mark?
Oh yeah, I just put you on a solo shot. So
Okay.
see,
I saw you.
I am the director. Look at me, buddy. I have just solo of me and you, and then you by yourself. I'm a complete director over here.
You're amazing. So you're doing all the work. I'm just going to do this song.
Sing
Charles
it.
Tenley. He was a African American pastor in Philadelphia back at the turn of the 20th century. He was the child of a slave who had moved himself to Philadelphia, self-educated. It became a great preacher and a great songwriter. Gaither knows all kinds of great stuff about Charles Tenley. Whenever I mention his name, he'll rattle off some of the songs that Charles Tenley did. But this is one that I don't think even Gaither has heard, but it might be my favorite Charles Tenley song. Beams of heaven as I go through this wilderness below, guide my feet in peaceful ways, turn my midnights into days. When in the darkness I would grow, faith always sees a star of hope, and soon from all life's grief and danger I shall be free someday. Oftentimes my sky is clear, joy abounds without a tear, though a day so bright begun, clouds may hide tomorrow's sun. There'll be a day that's always bright, a day that never will yield to night, and in its light the streets of glory I shall behold someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, nor what the future holds for me. But this I know, if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. Last verse. Burdens now may crush me down, disappointments all around, troubles speak in mournful sight, sorrow through a tear-stained eye. There is a world where pleasure reigns, no mourning soul shall roam its plains, and to that land of peace and glory I want to go someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, nor what the future holds for me. This I know, if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. Home someday.
What a
my
beautiful
voice.
song.
Isn't that a great song?
That is. How do you find the most unusual? I love it though when you sing "Shall we gather at the river at the gate?" So before we leave here today, I definitely want to hear you do that one. Anybody out there got a question for me or Buddy? Donna Reagan says this song needs more exposure. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Donna. You know, I actually got to record that song on a project called Someday, which I took the title from that line in the hymn, and it was a wonderful project. I did it about 4 or 5 years ago with some of my best friends, Jeff Taylor and Ken Lewis and Scott Dente and a whole bunch of folks. Aubrey Haney came in and played fiddle. Ron Block was playing banjo. It was just such a great time in the attic studio of Ken Lewis's house, and I had so much fun. And I'd wanted to do a project like this because it was just all these songs that had sort of accumulated over about a 20-year period.
Man,
that if people wanted me to be their song leader and come to their church and do something, I would probably be these sort of obscure songs, but songs that I feel like need more exposure, in the contemporary setting. So I had such a good time doing songs like that. I was doing songs I did a Fernando Ortega song and Chris Rice tune. And
Penny Dunn says, let's hear some more. Sing another one of those obscure ones.
All right.
We're all on quarantine. We got nothing to do. This isn't a Gaither concert or NBC. We're not on a time clock.
All right, listen, this is a good one. A little country. I love a little country song, in church. Fernando Ortega wrote this song, and this has a little chorus. How he loves us with great love, he who sits enthroned above. For our lives he spilled his blood and sent his spirit like a flood. Children of the living God, sing to the living God. So that's the song. So come on in and sing on the chorus, all right? Children of the living God, come and sing out loud. Children of the living God, sing to the living God. Sing of the wonders he has made, bird in flight and falling rain. Sing of the wonders he has made, sing to the living God. Here's that chorus now. How he loves us with great love, he who sits enthroned above. For our lives he spilled his blood and sent his spirit like a flood. Children of the living God, sing to the living God. Sing of his gentle healing hands and how they found the lowliest man. Sing of his gentle healing hands, sing to the living God. Sing of the mercy that he gives, though we sin, he forgives. Sing of the mercy that he gives, sing to the living God. Oh, how he loves us with great love, he who sits enthroned above. For our lives he spilled his blood, sent his spirit like a flood. Children of the living God, Sing to the living God. Last verse now. Sing for the morning when he comes in the clouds, glorious sun. Sing for the morning when he comes. Sing to the living God. Last chorus, here we go. Oh, how he loves us with great love. He who sits enthroned above. For our lives he spilled his blood and sent his spirit like a flood. Children of the living God, sing to the living God. Sing to the living God. Sing to the living God.
Oh, buddy. Oh,
Isn't that a good song?
yes. And Regula Dam says, what a beautiful song. And thank you, Mark and Buddy. And Maria Evans says she loves your hat.
That's my Easter hat.
That's a cool hat.
Thank you. I'm putting it on and wishing I was down at the beach.
And Laurie Hostetler says she loves you. Got a soothing voice, buddy.
Thank you, Laurie.
You do.
You know, it is. It's Holy Week. We're leading up to Easter, Mark.
Yeah.
So I was remembering that as of course I remembered it this past Sunday because we had a nice Palm Sunday.
Right.
Streamed through it from like a lot of other people did. We streamed our church service and I've come to just love this week, Holy Week. You know, as a Baptist, I used to not know what to do because all you did was just wait for Easter Sunday to happen.
Well, we would always hear, well, we celebrate every Sunday, but you know what? There is something special about taking out a week, and so talk us through it. You're a Presbyterian, you understand all that. Tell us, Baptists, how this goes.
Well, you know, the longer I have been a Christian, the more I have paid attention to things like, I mean, days, months, seasons of the year that are part of the Christian calendar. And, you know, this week, when you get to Palm Sunday, then, you know, there's the other days of the week that become kind of important days for Christians to gather down through the centuries, like Maundy Thursday. Did you ever go to a Maundy Thursday service?
No,
Mark?
No.
Maundy, Maundy, and it's taken from the root word that we get our word mandate, which is, you know, a law, a rule. And remember, it was the night before Good Friday that Jesus met with his disciples, and he says, this one last command I give you, that you love one another. And then he washed their feet. So that was the last thing he wanted them to remember from him. This is the last thing I want you guys to take with you as I leave you, is love one another. So, and then that incredible thing of washing their feet. And remember, they did, you know, Peter did warn him, don't wash my feet. And he says, well, if I wash your feet, you can't be any part of me. So it became this huge, mysterious thing that Jesus was doing to show them.
And I love Peter because he said, then wash my whole body.
Yeah, he always goes from one extreme to the other.
I relate to him so much.
Me too. But you know that if a lot of people do foot washing services on Maundy Thursday, and
well, we never did foot washing services ever.
I went to a foot washing service at an Episcopal church one time, Mark, and we were at a beach, and I took my whole family. We just went down, and we watched, because at one point they said, "All right, we're going to line up and we're going to wash each other's feet," and it was this church family. And it occurred to me that, you know, these people coming forward, they were in a line coming down the center aisle of the church, and there it started with the priest. They washed each other's feet, and then they started receiving everybody in the church. And whoever would come up would kneel and wash that person's feet that was seated there, and then they would sit down, and that person who'd had their feet washed would in turn wash their feet. And I thought, you know, if you had to get that intimate with people in your church once a year, it might be a little bit harder to hold a grudge. And
what if you just can't stand the look of feet? And I mean, you know, you don't want to touch someone's feet. What if you have that problem?
Well, listen, like I say, it was an observation of mine, not like I've been to I mean, it's like we didn't get in line and participate.
Oh,
But I did watch that, and I saw the beauty of that and the wisdom behind having that as a ritual of a yearly thing to do. Now on Good Friday, a lot of times you'll have Good Friday services,
well, you know
and
what
those
would be
are
really horrible, buddy, is if they had a foot washing now, because no one's been to a pedicure in how long, and you'd have these claws come out of those shoes. Oh my gosh! Anyway, you were saying what?
I was going on to Good Friday because I knew you were going to get bogged down on the foot
Okay,
washing
okay,
thing.
okay.
So, all right, Good Friday. Have you ever been to a Good Friday service, Mark?
Oh, of course.
Surely you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are great because they usually end with candles in a dark church, and finally the last thing that's done is the candles are blown out, and there's no singing done at the end. People just file out silently because now you're entering into Holy Saturday, when where the creed says that that I always love this language in the Apostles' Creed that says he died, he descended into hell.
Mm.
On the third day he rose again. And it's like, when you leave that service, and usually it is a reflection on what has happened on that day, and all the horror, all the shame, all of the mockery, all of the things that were done to Jesus, who's dying on our behalf, on behalf of humanity, of the whole world. And it just is a great time to reflect on the meaning of Good Friday, why it is Good Friday. And as you leave there, realizing your complicity in that whole thing of why God has to go to this extreme to save a world this lost. It becomes a great way to go into that Saturday and think about Jesus going to bat for the whole world. It's got those mysterious passages in Peter's letters where he talks about Jesus going to the saints that had already passed on, to those who had passed on,
Let's
and
talk
preaching the
about
gospel.
that. Let's talk about that. Okay, in the Apostles' Creed, it says he went and descended into hell, right, for 3 days.
Right. Yeah. So let me see if I can find it.
Well, and he preached to everybody down there, right?
Yeah. I mean, in Peter's, in one of Peter's letters, he talks about this, and you can tell Peter's kind of getting in over his head.
Oh.
Let's see if I can find it.
Don't y'all love this? We have no time limit. I can't hear Bill Gaither's clock ticking. Remember how you could be on that stage and you could hear Bill Gaither's watch ticking because we're taking too much time?
Oh,
I'm almost out
somebody
of
out there, ask some of your listeners to help me. I think it's in 2 Peter's what I'm looking for.
What are you looking for? 2 Peter. Anybody out there know what Buddy's looking for? What are you looking for, buddy?
Where Peter talks about Jesus preaching to
where
the
is
people.
that? Come on, listeners. I know you know this. There's got to be at least one theologian watching me, but maybe not.
Oh, sword drills.
There's 1,180 people watching, probably not one theologian in the bunch. Wesley Tay says he loves talking about our Savior. I do too, Wesley. It's fun. I learn stuff. And Betty Jenkins is dying laughing over our foot washing story. But it's in the Bible. You know it is.
That's right. It is.
Oh, 1 Peter 3:19. Thank you, Nathan McClay. We have one theologian, Nathan McClay.
Okay, here we go. Yes.
Is that it? 1 Peter 3:19.
I'll start on the 18th verse. For Christ died for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive by the Spirit, through whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison, who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water, and this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also. And going on. But that's that reference. He was put to death in the body, but made alive by the Spirit, through whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah. So it's just this little mysterious little one-line reference, and it's like, whoa, man, you can't really build a theology on that,
Oh,
but it
you
sure
can
does make you
try.
think about. That's
And I
right.
love the idea of Jesus going to hell, preaching, taking it. I mean, first of all, you're in hell, right? You're in torment. And Jesus, God, Jehovah on foot shows up, preaches a sermon and says he's paid for your sin. Who wouldn't go with him?
Right. Well, I was at a retreat one time, and the guy showed this old Greek icon. It was a Greek Orthodox icon, and it showed Christ, the triumphant risen Christ, and he was standing on a bridge across a river, or actually it was like a door that had fallen across the river. And on either side was like bones and just like death skulls and things like that at his feet.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people down there too. They were just like in torment and all in a jumble. And on one side was this glorious new creation, and over here was that picture, that scene of this. And he had his hand. He was grabbing a hold of one of these souls that were down there. And then on the other side, he was grabbing hold of the saints on the other that were already in, and he was kind of making this connection, bringing them across.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful picture of the salvation of God through Christ, that it's going to be so much more, so much wider and magnificent than we can imagine. And it's there's this beautiful picture of God capturing a lost world, no matter how bad off we are. Somebody recently brought to my mind about the thief on the cross, who both reviled him. One of the Gospels says they were both tormenting him. And then one of them sort of comes to his senses and says, hey, this guy's innocent. We're the ones that deserve to be up here. And then he asked Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus says, I promise you, today you'll be with me in paradise. I mean, what did that guy do to deserve any of that? He had just reviled him. And then he turns right, it's just sort of last minute foxhole kind of prayer.
A Hail
Jesus
Mary
says,
pass.
Yeah. Jesus says, you're in.
I don't even know what a Hail Mary pass is, but it sounds kind of terminal and final.
Well, it was a last ditch effort, whatever you want to call it.
But
thank
we
God.
all of us have as much participation in our salvation as he did. We have no, I love what King David said. He said when he had sinned, right, he'd committed adultery, the baby had died, and he said in Psalm 51, restore unto me the joy of thy salvation. This is God's salvation. This is God's plan. He's let us in on it, but we have nothing to do with it. I think our participation in salvation is yes and thanks, right? Agreeing with God that we're sinners and we need a Savior, and then spend the rest of your days thanking Him that He included you. What do you think?
What are you asking me?
Yeah. Who else is
well,
on here with me?
Right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's all His doing.
Yeah.
And from first to last, what's that Philippians passage? He who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it.
Yeah, I love that.
He began it. He completes it. He does everything in between.
Yes.
Steve Brown used to say, he says, listen, when it comes to God, you take the first step, He'll take the second step. By the time you take the third step, you'll realize it was Him who took the first step. And that's right. That's the way it goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be like if I saw a baby, sitting out on the interstate in its little car seat, but somehow it got out of the car and it's sitting in the middle of I-40. And I wouldn't walk out there and say, would you like me to save you? I'd grab the baby and run. And me being evil know how to give good gifts. How much more our Father? I think the reason why I know to have the passion to grab the baby and run is because Jesus grabbed creation and ran. I think that, I could be wrong though. I really, what do you think? I mean, does all the saving. And do you think it's possible to be redeemed on the other side of the grave? Because it looks like these people in hell were.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think God's grace is truly so amazing and wide and far reaching that we can't imagine what he can do. He certainly does not need my preaching or your witness or any of these things that we think is so essential for the work to get done.
Yeah.
But here's the good thing. He doesn't save us just so we can wait on heaven. He saves us so we can get in on his redemption, on what he's doing in the world. He wants us to partner with him, which is just truly amazing because I just totally bungle it up all the time and make a mess of it. And he still takes that and turns that into something that's redemptive in my life and other people's lives. I was telling you this morning before we got on the air that I'm celebrating today 37 years of marriage.
Oh, that is fantastic, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you. I had nothing to do with it.
37 years, you had something to do with it.
There we are when we were young and skinny.
Oh, push it closer to the camera.
Is that what? Let's see. Which?
Yes.
Shoot, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's when you had hair.
I had a little bit of hair. Nope. I had a mustache.
Yeah.
How do you get this thing? Oh, here we go.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm figuring this out.
And 37 years later, you're a grandfather.
I'm a grandfather. My wife has not left me. She's not kicked me out in the streets. And why? Because the grace of God is amazing.
And I think I've observed, let me just say, that you allow her to be her. She doesn't have to like everything you like or participate in everything you participate in. I love that she has her own opinions about music.
Well, I married a woman who, from the get-go, she knew who she is. She's known who she is.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't need me, leading her along and explaining things to her and telling her anything. What she did need was a partner. She needed somebody who would go through life with her and learn how to be a union together in Christ.
Were y'all both believers when you married, or what? How
we were.
You were?
We weren't when we dated. I was starting to search and even attend church a little bit. But I mean, I was basically living the life of a heathen. And but I met her and thought, wow, this is a class act here. I need to clean up my act and see if I can, give her what she deserves. And that was one of the things that convinced me of how bankrupt I was as a good person, because I could put on a pretty good show when I was around her, but when I was away from her, I'd just go back to my old patterns. And we dated for about 2 or 3 years, and during that time is when I was really coming to an understanding that I needed God, a God who was on the outside, who would come on into the inside of me, and work on me in such a way that I could see some change in my life. But I knew I couldn't do it myself. So that part of the gospel was coming true for me. And I remember one night when I was starting to get a handle on this and talking to Vicki about it, and she was just really quiet because she had sort of a lapsed faith herself. She had been a believer in high school, and it had kind of grown dormant during college years. But as she watched it being rekindled in me, I had been lost since adolescence. I kind of wandered away from church in high school, and she saw it coming alive in me. I could tell that she was just being quiet and seeing, wow, I wonder if this is real. And within a couple of weeks of that, I had asked her to. We were having dinner one night, and I just well, it's too long a story and it's pretty funny, but I kind of backed into a proposal, and she said yes. So, so then we were married a few months later, and by that time we were starting to sneak into church a little bit and start to figure out how do we live this faith. And within a year, we moved to Nashville and started going to church and really meeting a community and being a part of a community of believers for the first time. And it made all the difference. And I mean, that's the way grace was working in our lives. It's the way we were learning that in our marriage, we didn't have what it took anymore to build our marriage than we did to build our own separate lives. We needed the grace of God, and He has met us. And uh, it's been a struggle a lot of the time, and not all a glorious, picnic. A lot of the time, it's been. I mean, even in this shutdown, I'll be honest with you. We need time to get away from each other. Vicki and I do, and now we can't. I mean, we're with each other 24/7, and so I'm really glad I have a basement for her sake and mine.
Yeah, we're human. Even Jesus had to get away. You remember it said he'd get away to lonely places because the crowd was pressing in, and he had to get away from those 12 idiots. He was, he was always saying, "How long do I have to be with y'all before you're going to get it?" Do you hear the frustration in his voice?
Right. Yeah, and I can hear it in Vicky's voice too. Sometimes too. It's like, no, actually, what happens with us is it's it is those things that it's the little things that start to build up, that start to expose the chinks in our armor. The way somebody's, a passive aggressive answer or any of these things that sort of make you feel like, gosh, I have had enough of this guy or this woman, and if she doesn't cut me some slack, I'm screaming. Oh no, really. No, it really is. It really is me most of the time. Although I sure wish I could figure out a way to blame her for
I've
more
never
things.
seen that side of you, buddy. So I'm glad because when I think of you, I think you're always hiding your angel wings before I get in the room.
No, I'm a pretty selfish, insecure person. That there's that part of me that wants to that will want to take over in my thinking.
We'll
and in
take
my
over
attitude.
this. Darlene McIntyre, per our conversation earlier, asks, so does that mean Jesus will give people a second chance in hell during the second coming? Or
shoot, that's too big a question for me.
Well, I wouldn't put it past God for anything, but I wouldn't count on it either. I'd make sure you know him this side of the grave so you don't have to worry about
Right.
the other side. But I wouldn't
Well,
put anything past him.
Calvinists and Arminians have argued forever over questions like that.
Right.
George MacDonald, who was raised Calvinist, but who kind of bucked against the Calvinist doctrine a lot of his life, he saw hell as sort of God's last resort. He saw that a lot of our life of sanctification is a refining process. That passage of where he's burning away the hay and the stubble, and is going to reveal the gold. And there's some great hymns that speak about that. How firm a foundation. Don't you remember that?
Yes. Sue Dodge is watching, and she said she's loving this conversation. Can you believe that? Sue Dodge. Hi, Sue.
Sue Dodge. Hey, sister. Good friend. It's good to see your name.
Yeah.
I hope y'all are doing well up there. And where are they, in Virginia?
Yes. Now, Pat Ennis says there are no second chances after the rapture. And I mentioned the other day that I'm not so sure I believe in the rapture. I do believe in the second coming of Christ. I mean, like the church fathers, but then I heard through the grapevine that a guy named, what's his name? Oh, shoot. About 175 years ago, came up with the rapture, and C.I. Scofield stuck it in his notes, and somebody, the Drake Bible, stuck it in their notes over for the Pentecostals. And then, so What do you think? I mean, I'm for, if God wants to rapture, I'm all for it. I just think it needs to be a little 150 years after the fact. And he's,
Well,
Darby,
it's a real
John
con.
Darby, John Darby. Y'all Google
Yeah.
John Darby is the name of the guy. It's in Google how he came up with this doctrine. And if I always heard if it's new, it isn't true.
Well, it kind of has to do with our concept of heaven. A biblical concept of heaven is not one of where we're flying off somewhere to some celestial cloud-like existence somewhere, and we're in spirit. We're in just spirits liberated from our bodies. The biblical view of heaven is one that really started even developing with the Jews when they talked about in Isaiah, for example, a new heaven. When God says, "Behold, I create a new heavens and a new earth." And by the time you get to Revelation, at the end of Revelation, John sees the New Jerusalem not going up, but coming down.
Yes.
So, and this becomes, and it's 1,500 miles wide, 1,500 miles deep, 1,500 miles high. It's this perfect cube, 1,500 miles. And that was the known world at that time. So it's like a picture of God recreating the whole world, restoring, recreating. So the New Jerusalem is just this picture of, God's finished work of salvation, where the things that were lost through the fall and all have finally been redeemed, restored, recreated, and this world is like He always wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So that's what we're being prepared for, not to fly off somewhere. So I tend to I don't believe in the rapture either. I don't believe we're being raptured off somewhere. I believe we're being prepared to be resurrected and to live in this world as new creatures in Christ.
Yeah, and someone heard me say I didn't know about the rapture, didn't know if I believed in it anymore, and they got all mad. I think when that becomes a cornerstone for you, you got a problem, because you can't take a doctrine that's 150 years old and make it like it do or die. I mean, to me, the fundamentals, I am a fundamentalist, and I believe in the fundamentals of the faith in the sense that the virgin birth, the sinless life of Christ, the death, the burial, the resurrection, and the second coming. After that, everything else is up for debate.
Right. Well,
maybe.
Those things, we're talking about eschatology, end time sort of things. And that, we have to learn how to, we have to agree to disagree.
Yes.
And how to do that. And that's where you need a lot of grace again,
yes.
Mark. And a lot of times I don't have it. I've been as impatient with people that didn't believe the way I did.
Yeah.
That's been one of my worst faults.
Well, I think it's like this. If you were walking down the hallway of your house and you heard your children, say you have 5 kids, buddy, and they're in the room and you overhear them arguing, and you put your ear to the door to listen, why are they arguing? And you hear them arguing about how they can be more like you. Well, after you faint and get back up, you start listening to them, and one's got it kind of right. One's kind of, one believes that daddy will be home by 7. The other one believes daddy will get home by midnight or whatever. Second, which of the kids are you going to kick out of the house because they got it wrong? Really? And you, being evil, know how to give good gifts. How much more? We don't have to get everything right to get home. But it is fun to talk about these things.
Well, it is. And I think the way we think, I think our theology matters, it especially in how it's being worked out in your daily living. So I think a theology of heaven, a good theology of heaven, is going to make me, if I'm believing in, for example, that there's a new creation and a new earth, then that informs the way I want to live today. I kind of want to demonstrate what's going to be now. So that little foretaste of things to come.
Good luck.
I mean, the way it works is if I'm is the way you work out the love with your children, the way you become a neighbor, the way you, if you're a boss, the way you treat your employees. You give demonstrations of heaven now.
Yeah.
But it's not an off here. It's something being worked out right here in the here and now. So resurrection really is about now.
And he said,
It's
my
not,
burden is light, my yoke is easy. And the things you just said, how you treat your wife, that may be difficult at times, but being kind to people is not that hard. It's not that difficult.
It might be if you're just a natural born curmudgeon, and a lot of people are.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's too bad.
But here's the thing. It's also, how do I relate to curmudgeons? Am I just going to be curmudgeonly to them?
Yeah.
Or am I going to try to show some patience to that person that might help them with their curmudgeonliness, if that's the word. But and then I find that I'm what my shortcomings are, and how I need grace, and then it comes back. What's the thing? We're all cracked pots. We're all jars of clay. To show that the all-surpassing power is from Him and not from ourselves. Well, there again, that's this demonstration of heaven breaking in now. I had a preacher one time say, listen, if we get this resurrection thing right, understand that we're resurrection people, that the Spirit of God is living in us in the same way that He lives in Christ, that He lived in Christ, but in us as a body of Christ here on earth, demonstrating and being a witness to what has already started and will be completed in the new heavens and the new earth. If we start doing that now, then that's just going to be the greatest witness this world has ever seen. Yeah. Not so much that we can give a plan of salvation, but that we can show the world what matters when you believe in a resurrection age like we're a part of. And that God is committed to finishing in this world what He started, in the same way that He's doing it with each one of us. So anyway,
well,
that's kind of what I believe.
We just got to get the curmudgeons and the happy people in cahoots together, so they can the happy people can rub off on the curmudgeons. Andy Andrews just texted me and said, "See if you can get the word cahoots in." He said, "Curmudgeon is a good word. See if you can get in cahoots." So he's listening, but he ain't paying attention.
As I stumble and stammer around trying to explain these things that are way beyond my pay grade, it's so obvious to me this morning why I'm not a preacher.
Well, you know what though?
I still know that these.
What I tell you, buddy, I trust that my Father is so crazy about me that He can handle me getting things wrong about Him, because He knows I love Him. And I can't wait to see Him. And anything I'm wrong, I'll gladly say, "Oh, I was wrong about that. You're much more wonderful than I ever dreamed." I just think He is, our options are good God, bad God, or no God. I think He's good. And I think He's kind, and I think He's like the greatest Father. And I don't think He's a pushover. You gotta behave a little bit, but if you get it wrong, you ain't gonna kick you out of the house just because you don't get everything right. Love Jesus, and it'll all work out.
Remember, we were talking about Monday, Thursday.
Oh yeah.
What did He want them to know? His last command wasn't, "All right, now y'all work this stuff out. Yeah. Get all the details worked out, because that's going to be really important." Now, what He says is, love one another.
Yeah. And
let me tell you, that's all the homework we needed right there.
Yes. Hey, sing something else.
Later on. Okay. What do you want me to sing?
Shall We Gather at the River? That's one of my favorites that you do.
By the way, how long do you do these things?
Till we get bored, and I'm not bored yet.
Well, it's my anniversary. I'm going to have to dismiss
myself. I know. Well, after this
soon.
song, we'll let you go.
All right, let me see if I can. I got to get it in tune. Got to retune it a little bit.
Oh, yes.
This song was written by one of your ancestors, Mark, Robert Lowry.
Robert Lowry. My mother hoped we were related.
Yeah, he wrote he wrote this song, music and lyrics, but he wrote the music for a lot of things, like Nothing But the Blood. He wrote that music. I think he wrote Marching to Zion was his melody. What's the one another one that I recorded? How Can I Keep From Singing? He wrote that melody. But he wrote this during the Civil War, at the end of the Civil War in 1864, when there were, by this time, 500,000 people dead as a result of that conflict that was tearing the nation apart. And there were all these songs people were writing about the river of death. And the story I read was that he read that story that I referred to at the end of Revelation. Let me just read a little bit of it.
All right.
Mark.
Love it.
When he said, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Now the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.' He who was seated on the throne said, 'I am making everything new.'" So, and then over here he said, "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb, down the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations."
Yes.
There
Healing
you go.
of the nations. Think about it.
Yeah. I know. Here's this beautiful, God is, he wants a people for himself from every tribe, tongue, everybody. He wants them all coming in. There's other images in that same passage where it shows the gates of this city are open all the time. There's no more night.
Well, show me a healthy father who only wants, hey buddy, show me a healthy father who only wants a few of his children.
I know. That's right. He created them. He wants them
He
in.
wants them all.
So he created them. He says, he looked at it and says, "Man, this is good. I want it. I want it all."
Yeah.
So there we get this picture of it finally getting completed. Robert Lowry saw that at the end of the Civil War and said, "Man, that's the river I want to write about. I want to write about that river with those trees of life planted on either side." And he wrote this. "Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river, and soon our pilgrimage will cease. And soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. And yes, we'll gather the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Oh, and yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. gather with the saints at the river by the throne of God.
Yes, buddy. Did you sing On the Margin of the River?
Yes.
Well, I just...
On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we shall walk and worship ever, all the happy golden day.
Uncle Robert knew how to write.
He wrote one that day, let me tell you.
He did, didn't he?
I mean, just think about it, Mark. I mean, he's looking forward and longing for a day when there's no more racism, there's no more slavery, there's no more Republicans and Democrats fighting over who's got the best way of doing things. There's no more wars. There's no more plagues. There's no more famines. There's none of these things that bring those tears, that bring that mourning and bring that pain into the human experience.
No more coronavirus.
Right. So don't you want to live? Don't you want to demonstrate that today? What's coming?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what a song like that does for me. It's like, man, I'm not waiting for this, off in the future. I got to try to get in on it right now because God's doing it now.
Yeah.
When she came out of that grave, it started right then, 2,000 years ago. Resurrection living started 2,000 years ago.
And
if you want to read what it looks like, read.
What now?
I said, if you want to see what it looks like with a bunch of messed up people, read the book of Acts or Paul's letter to the Corinthians, or, it's a big old messy thing.
And it started out messy. They didn't have to wait long for the church to get messed up.
No. And, I love it. I've just been reading Corinthians for the last month or so, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. And, in 1 Corinthians, Paul's going, hey, some of you say, I'm with Apollos. Some of you say, I'm with Paul. Some of you say, I'm with Peter. When did Christ get divided? And he just takes them to task. He goes, man, if you think this is about who belongs to whom, which personality you're attached to or which, theology or whatever, then, man, you have missed the boat.
Yeah.
It's like, when did Christ get divided? So I love reading the Bible. I don't explain it very well, but man, I'll tell you what, when I read it and ask God to give me the eyes to see, he does in a limited way, but still he does.
Well, it's enough to keep you moving in the right direction. Little foretastes of glory divine.
There you go.
I love you, buddy. Go love on your wife.
Thanks, Mark. Really good being with you. Thanks for letting me join you and your viewers this morning. Well, God bless you during this. Let's stay in touch.
Let's stay in touch and keep praying for all the people that are watching. I'm praying up for these sweet people that God will protect them, and you and your sweet grandbaby and your the bass singer and her husband and all your whole family. I love them all.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder. You probably already been reminding it on a daily basis, but these people who are on the front line, these medical workers and the people that are putting themselves in harm's way, they are the heroes.
They are. Keep
them in your prayer. Help them, support them any way you can. And the people that are helping the poor out there, the Second Harvest groups, people that are trying to provide shelter, food, and all, any way you can help those organizations. Now's the time for that kind of sacrifice. So let's all do it together.
Yes. Thank you, buddy. I love you.
Love you too, Mark. Take care, man.
Bye-bye. Hey, y'all, before you go, I want to tell you or sing with you because we didn't sing that much. So I want to sing one song that I had ready. Where is it? Because I don't want to mess up these words. Well, let me see here. Don't you love this? Hold on, that I had it ready and now I don't. Leave it there. Lyric. Okay, here we go. If the world from you withholds of its silver and its gold, and you have to get along with meager fare, just remember in his word, how he feeds the little birds. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Sing it with me. Leave it there. Leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord, oh, and leave it there. If you trust him, though you doubt, he will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if your body suffers pain, and your health you can't regain, and your soul is slowly sinking in despair, Jesus knows the pain you feel. He can save and he can heal. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Sing it with me. Leave it there. Leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you trust him, though you doubt, he will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. I will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central. I'll be checking in on you. Day number 18. Don't miss it. And share it. Share. Share this on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, which I know it will be on YouTube in just a minute because something's wrong with Anyway, I'm going to fix it. But on YouTube, what do you do over there? You subscribe and you ring the bell. That's what you do. See you tomorrow.